This is a matter of deen. This ilm is a matter of deen. You be careful who you take your deen from.
في hadith sahih, and also Sheikh Nasir brings it in his Sahihah, he numbers it 147. الذي أخرجه الإمام دارمي والإمام أحمد brought it. This hadith is sahih actually, as he said, Darimi and Imam Ahmad brought it. And Suhaib says, we were sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يعني بينما رسول الله قائد مع أصحابه إذ ضحك. Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, and suddenly he laughed. Suddenly, the Prophet ﷺ laughed. فقال ألا تسألوني مما أضحك? Won't you ask me from what I'm laughing about? Why I'm laughing? قال يا رسول الله, O Messenger of Allah, مما تضحك, what are you laughing about? قال أجبت لأمر المؤمن. I laughed because I was astonished at the affair of a believer. إن أمره كله خير. Listen, these are the words of Mustafa alayhi salam. He doesn't speak of his own desires. Whatever he speaks is revelation. Listen, this is the words of Rasulullah describing a believer. إن أمره كله خير. All of his affair, all of his circumstance is good. All of it. إن أصابه ما يحب حمد الله وكان له خير. If something happens to him that he loves, if Allah blesses him with something that he loves, then he praises Allah, and this is good. وإن أصابه ما يكره. And if something happens to him, if he's put through some difficulty or test or trial or tribulation or hardship, something that he hates, فَصَبَرَ, he's patient. كَانَ لَهُ خَيْرٌ, and that is good for him. وَلَيْسَ كُلُّ أَحَدٍ أَمْرُهُ لَهُ خَيْرٌ إِلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ. And no one situation is totally good except the believer. And no one else's affair, no one else's circumstance, no one else's condition, no one else's situation is totally good except the mu'min, except the believer. أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء. The ones who received the most difficulty and went through the most hardship and went through the most difficulty were the most beloved people to Allah, the prophets. Allah loved them amongst more than the rest of mankind or the creatures, and he tested them. He put them to test. He put them through hardship. He put them through difficulties. Listen to this narration that Ibn Majah brings, and Ibn Sa'd and Hakam, and Sheikh Nasir brings it as 144 in his Sahihah. All throughout Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu qala dakhaltu ala nabi. I entered upon the Prophet ﷺ. That's when before the Prophet ﷺ passed away. He was suffering, if you will, and having a fever. And I placed my hand for wada'tu yadi alayh. I placed my hand upon him. فوجدت حروحه بين يديه فوق اللحاف. I felt the heat from above the blanket. I felt the heat of his fever from above the blanket. فقلت يا رسول الله, I said, O Messenger of Allah, ما أشدها عليك, how hard it is upon you. قال إن كذلك. Yes, it's like that. يضاعف لنا البلاء. Trials and tribulations and hardships and difficulties are doubled and multiplied and increased for us, meaning the prophets. ويضاعف لنا الأجر. But also the reward, the blessing, the level that he's raised with Allah ta'ala is also multiplied and increased for him. قلت يا رسول الله, I said, O Messenger of Allah, أي ناس شد بلاء Who are the people most put to difficulty? Who are the people most tested? Who goes through the most trials and tribulations, O Messenger of Allah? Qala al-anbiya. He said the prophets. Qul ya Rasulullah thumma man. Then who? Qala thumma as-salihun. Then the righteous. In kana ahadun yubtali bil-faqr. Some of them are tested with poorness. Hatta ma yajid ahadun illa iba'a allati yahwiha. And since some of them don't have no clothing except a baya that they place around their bodies, nothing else. وَإِنْ كَانَ أَحَدٌ يَفْرَحُ بِبَلَاهِ. But one of them used to be so happy when he was put to trial or test. كَمَا يَفْرَحُ أَحَدٌ بِرِخَاهِ. Like you seek enjoyment and pleasure and contentment through ease. They were happy with trial and tribulation like you're happy with ease. قال تعالى, Allah the Exalted stated, في سورة الزمر, إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب. Verily the patient will get their reward without it being estimated, without it being calculated. It can't be counted. What is waiting for reward for that one who is patient? فالصبر, patience, أخي Muslim, my brother Muslim, al-ibtilah, upon when you put the trial, upon when you put the test, upon when you go through sadness, upon when you go to hardship, upon when you go through difficulties. Patience, as-sabr, alamatul khayr. It is the sign that you're upon khayr. It's the sign that you're upon good. It is this distinguishing characteristic or this distinguishing matter that shows that you're upon good. كما جاء في الحديث, as occurring in the hadith of Sahih that's related by Abu Dawood بإسناده عن مقدار ibn Aswad مرفوعا إن السعيد لمن جنب الفتن ولمن ابتلي بالصبر فواها. Better Sa'id, the happy one, is the one who can avoid trials and tribulations, especially those that lead him astray or take him away from his deen. But the one who is tested and he's patient, fawaha, yani meaning so great a reward for him. So great a reward for him. An unimaginable reward for him. Also has been related by Bukhari and Muslim on authority Ata ibn Abi Rabah. قال لي Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas said to him, should I not show you a woman from the women of Jannah? قلت بلى. قال هذه المرأة السوداء. This black woman who came to the Prophet Islam and said, verily I have seizures and I become uncovered. Make dua to Allah for me. The Prophet Islam said, if you are patient, you will have the Jannah. And if you want, I'll make dua for you that you be made healthy. She said, I'll be patient. I'll be patient. So the Prophet Islam, she said, I'll be patient, but make sure I don't become uncovered. So the Prophet Islam made dua to Allah that she doesn't become uncovered. This is how the Salaf was. Because of this, qala ba'da salaf. Some of the Salaf used to say, إِذَا نَزَلَتْ بِكَ مُصِيبَةٌ فَصَبَرْتَ. If a difficulty happens to you, a hardship happens to you, you're put to trial, you're tested, and you're patient, كَانَ مُصِيبَتُكَ وَاحِدَةً. Then you only got one difficulty. You only got one hardship. You only got one problem. When نَزَلَ بِكَ وَلَمْ تَصْبِرْ. But if a difficulty or hardship or trial comes your way and you're not patient, فَقَدْ أُصِبْتَ بِمُصِيبَتَيْنِ. Then you have two problems and two hardships. And particularly if it's a loss of a child or a loss of a loved one. If you're not patient with that, then you have two difficulties. The loss of the one you love plus the loss of the award or reward you would have got if you had been patient. فَالصَّبْرُ عَلَى ابْتِلَاءٍ عِبَادَةً لِلَّهِ. To be patient upon the tests and the trials and the hardships and the difficulties, guess what? is a worship for Allah. It's a worship for Allah. Many of us know that salat is a worship, and zakat is a worship, and ruku is a worship, and sujood is a worship, and reading Quran is a worship. How many of us know that being patient upon a hardship, upon a sadness, being patient upon a difficulty, upon a test, upon a trial, ibadatun lillah, is a worship for Allah. Ibadatun lillah. قال تعالى, Allah says in Surah Al-Hajj, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى الْحَرْفِ. Amongst mankind there are some who worship Allah on the edge. On the edge. فَإِنْ أَصَابُهُ خَيْرًا اطْمَأَنَّ بِهِ. If good comes to him or happens to him, he's content with it. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ فِتْنَةٌ انقلب على وجهه. But if a fitna comes to him, if a hardship befalls him, if a sadness comes his way, if something that brings about grief comes his way, if he's tested, if he's put to the test to see whether he meets the level that he should meet, what happens? Flips upon his face. Flips upon his face. خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. He loses this world and the hereafter. ذَلِكَ هُوَ خُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ.